Exciting. Semi-final. What's the mood like?
Yeah, it's good. Obviously, bit of a longer build-up now because of the game being called off Monday. So we had to adjust the schedule a little bit. But no, it's good. I think for the lads that were here last year, obviously it helps with being in this situation before. And I think there's a few lads that were ineligible because of loans and stuff. So I think there's a bit more hunger and appetite to be involved in the game. But ultimately, for us, for the end of the season and where we're at and where we want to get to, it's just another step on the road to what we want to achieve. So I think the strength of our squad and our team this year has been just taking it game by game, respecting opponents and making sure that no matter what the occasion is or who we're playing against, that we perform to our levels and we win or lose on our terms, in the fact that we then can get better and understand and develop. And that hasn't changed even towards the sort of business end of the season. I think that's what stood us in good stead and that's what's got us to this point in time.
Obviously semi-finals, people are going to look at the football pyramid and think that Gateshead are going to win this match, but you've played at the highest level of football and you know that that's rarely that simple.
No, it's not. And obviously Macclesfield aren't a step-free team or club or squad, to be honest with you. They've got some fantastic individuals. They've probably attracted to that level because of the stature of the club and what they've done in the last few years, which I think they could be very proud of as a club. The crowds that they get, and especially recently from what we've watched the football they're playing. So yeah, it's a bit false, their position in terms of the step they're in and the players they've got, and obviously probably even budget-wise compared to the two clubs, even though we're 2 leagues higher, they're probably dwarfing us in that sense as well. So we're under no means or delusions that this is a very, very good team with very good individuals that are playing really well and have got huge momentum behind them. So I think it's going to be a really, really tough game. It'll definitely be our toughest test in this competition, and it's something we've got to be ready for, because I think ultimately if we're not able to start the game in the right way and our mentality isn't right, they have real quality, good energy, good pace, good power, some fantastic footballers that can hurt you. So we've done our homework on them. They'll get our respect in terms of the way we set up and the way we play. However, we always go back to the fact that we control what we can control, and that's how we play and how we go about things.
The good news from your point of view is that I imagine yourself and the squad could hardly be in a better place in terms of self-confidence going into the game.
Yeah, I think so, and I think we tried to manage that after the Hartlepool game with Rochdale, in the fact that you don't want to get too carried away and you've got to understand why you're full of confidence and what gets the results, and it's stripping it back to basics in terms of the application, the mentality, the simplicity of our play. When you actually look at those 3 games against Alty, Hartlepool and Rochdale, it was probably the most simplistic we've actually played in terms of the patterns and the passing. And it's just understanding that the buy-in to the structure with our boys' talent on top is what brings us success. But ultimately, regardless, I think the mentality of this group is something that I'm most proud of in terms of the way they apply themselves every day, the way they are around the place, whether the lads are playing or not playing, or when we change the squad or change the team. And I think Saturday we're no exception, and that cannot drop in terms of the rest of this season, because 2 weeks, a lot of games now because of cancellations. We need to be able to maintain them levels regardless of who the opponents are or competition.
I imagine everyone's proud of the mentality of the club, because obviously the season started with a different guy in charge and then you're in charge, and yet you look at the terms of the results and the quality of performance, and there really hasn't been a lot of difference between either half of the season, really.
No, I think the consistency has been key in terms of what the club's done previously under Mike, and but even the club itself in the way we've recruited and the way we've gone about bringing players in. And I think that's the most pleasing thing, because the huge turnover we had in January, when it would have been easy for, you could argue, results and performances and league position to change, but we was able to recruit again, start from the ground up, and there was a lot of hard work put in by the team, the coaching staff and the scouting staff to be able to do that. And what's great is that not only we've brought in good footballers, but the people we've brought in, the lads that have come in, have bought into it massively. And what's nice for me is that since I've been in the transition, and the players are genuinely really excited to come up and want to come up to the North East, want to come and play for us. And I think that's a huge testament to everyone at the club, past and present, because if we can create an environment people want to be in, then the footballing becomes a little bit easier when you're delivering your messages as a coach and as a manager. So really, really pleased. I think huge credit goes out to Louis Mags, in terms of their support in the fact that, they're having to do multiple things. Louis having to play, having to, then galvanise the team, get his messages across. Mags making that transition into being a coach. And yeah, it's worked really well. We just need to make sure that consistency stays for the remainder of the season.
Final thing for me, I'm not a great fan of asking the question of which would you prefer, either or, because obviously there's a promotion campaign as well, because I always think, why can't you have both? So basically, can the trophy and the league campaign almost go hand in hand, and if success in one lead to success in the other? Yeah,
I think so. I think it's about having the right mentality for every time you approach a game. So our mentality is that we want to win on Saturday, and then after we play Saturday and we'll assess the game regardless of the result, as long as we feel the performance is there and the intent was there to do the right things. We always talk about intent in everything you do. Then I'd be quite happy and quite satisfied. Football, you're never going to win every game. You're never going to lose every game, hopefully. But it's about being consistent in how you go about that. And all I want to see is consistency, freedom, and a real enjoyment to attack what's left of the season. Because ultimately, to get yourselves into this position, the lads have done incredibly well. And I just want them to enjoy it for whatever it is, whatever the outcome is. I'm not too fussed as long as we give an account of why we've got to this position in the first place.
It's great for me, thank you.
Obviously last year's final was disappointing for the club, a rare one in recent seasons. Do you feel that's played a part in maybe adding motivation to get through to Wembley again?
Do you know what? No, to be honest with you. I think it's more a case that I think people want to get there again because you had the taste of the experience. I think ultimately, the chips are stacked against us in terms of, I think it was like 12 available first team players and some young lads on the bench, and then the positivities of people like Ollie Thompson coming through. But I think it's just more a case of a mentality that every time we step on the pitch, regardless of competition or opposition, we want to win the game. And also understanding about how we can win the game. And I think that's the biggest thing for me, is that the understanding in the group for what we've asked for them over the last 6 months, and the way the players have delivered it have been the most pleasing thing, in the fact that, you try and explain to the lads, because obviously a transition for me, I'm probably too honest because I'm learning. Maybe it's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing, I don't know. But, the work that Louis does, the work that Mags does, the work that I do, Josh, Luke, Fraser, like all the guys in the office, it's not just a case of turn up and see what happens. There's genuine hard work gone in, like that's always done at this club, because that's the ethos of the club ultimately. And I think it's really nice to see the lads respond to that, in the fact that there's belief in the information we're giving them, but then there's the belief from us in their talent and being able to apply it. So I think there's a really lovely continuity in the fact that whatever competition we're in, it's just going into a Saturday knowing we're going to give ourselves the best chance to get a result.
I remember sitting with you sort of 24 hours after Mike left in the office, and you said you wanted to not just take Mike Williamson's side and continue that on, you wanted to put your own stamp on the side. Do you feel that's happened now? Do you feel as if this is a Rob Elliot side?
Yeah, I'd hope so. I mean, it doesn't really bother me too much in the nice possible sense, as in I've learned a lot from Mike. I learned a lot from the players from being here previously. I think the big thing for me is that as long as when the lads step on the pitch, they understand that everything we've done is for the best interest of the club and ultimately for them as people, to give them the chance to develop as players, then yeah, I think I'll be quite satisfied and happy. And I think my most pleasing thing, which is a really weird feeling, stepping into the other side of football, is that you ask a group of human beings to do something because that's what you feel is the right thing to do, and then they do it and then they get results from it. It's a really nice feeling, ultimately, because you get to see people that you really care about deliver on a football pitch, and their dreams that they're trying to achieve and the things they're trying to do. That's the most pleasing thing for me, because the information we're given is there to help them ultimately. And when you see that on the pitch and you see that reflection, sometimes there've been results that we haven't actually got the results, but the performance has been really pleasing, and that's the best thing for me. You just hope that reflection at the end of this season, that everyone's got a little bit better and have enjoyed themselves, and hopefully can look back and reflect and say, regardless of the outcome, we've had a really good. They've personally enjoyed it.
I realise you're talking about the players' dreams there, but from your point of view, the thought of leading a team out at Wembley as a manager probably wasn't on the agenda in January when you went through that period of losing players.
Yeah, it was one of them that sort of snuck up on us, to be honest with you, as the cup does, because you're trying to think about so many things. Even in the office now, we've got 4 games in a week, so it's not just a case of Saturday, it's a case of managing the whole scenario and managing the squad and the load and the players. So it's not just a case of that's just from the coaching managing point of view, you've got to try and think about all the different things. But yeah, no, it would be lovely. It would be really nice to do. It'd be a lovely achievement for for the coaching team, for us to all lead the team out. But I think before we even get to that point, is we've got a huge game against a very good team, and I think like our strength in terms of getting to the position is just taking it one step at a time and making sure that we don't think one step ahead, because I can assure you right now that if we have that mentality tomorrow, if we even think about what happens after this game, then we won't be going to Wembley, because Macclesfield are a very good team, and it's going to be tough regardless. Even if we are on our mettle, we're at our highest levels, they have got individuals and they are a good team. They're able to, they will be able to hurt us. So it's not a case that it's just a foregone conclusion. And I think that's the worry for me, and that's the message I've been trying to get across to the lads, is that this is the first game in a 2 to 3 week block of games that if we want to achieve things that we've set out to at the start of the season, then the mentality of the game tomorrow is what's going to get us kick-started on that. And anything less, one, will be unacceptable, but two, won't allow us to achieve them things.
Just final one, looking back a month when you were looking at a lengthy injury list, all of a sudden that seems to have cleared up a bit, so you've got some big calls to make ahead of tomorrow. Yeah,
I think so. It's going to be tough regardless, every single game. Obviously, like you said, the added complication of having 4 games and going, what would be, was it last Good Friday as our last game, so in 8 days, so making sure between the games that the lads get load, because that's always important. But I think, it's cliches, you see why cliches are around, but the standard of training this week's been very, very good, and I think it's ultimately because there's very, very good players in every position, at least 2 in every position, that can affect the team in any way. And it almost takes the responsibility off me a little bit if I'm going to take myself out the firing line, because ultimately, I've been there myself, if you've got a very good player in your position and he's performing, he's doing well, he's training well, then it's an easier decision for me to make. But the one thing I can say is everyone's trained well, everyone's applied themselves, the standard's been fantastic, and we've really enjoyed training this week. It's been nice and refreshing for us with the heavy schedule we had of Saturday, Tuesdays, and it gives us a good build up into what is going to be a ridiculous schedule, let's be honest with you. It's not ideal playing 4 games in 7 days, but it is what it is. So yeah, I think my message and challenge to the boys is, yes, be disappointed, because that's human nature, but you're only going to be disappointed for a couple of days, and then you've got to be ready to perform, because if we achieve what we want to achieve and get to where we want to get to, then, like I've said multiple times, no matter whether we played 1 game or 45 games, it's just as important as any, and that's the mentality we have, hive mentality, pack mentality.
And Rob, from me, obviously this time last season when you had the semi-final with Barnet, obviously still involved around the club but not in a management capacity. How was your sort of preparation over, I suppose, this week or more so today ahead of tomorrow? How are things looking for you? Are they somewhat similar? Is it completely different? How's it looking at the moment?
To be fair, I was pushing Mike to put me on the bench as an outfield player against Barnet, so I was in a different mode. I had my outfield shirt on, just sitting in the office. But no, it is different, because ultimately, it was a real different scenario last year. Like Barnet, I think we had 1 sub in Ollie Thompson, if I'm right. Maybe a couple of lads that were really, really young from the college. And Ollie come on after 10 minutes, if I'm right. Is that right? At Barnet, if my memory serves me well, and did fantastically well. And whereas now we've got a healthy squad to choose from. But I'm probably more relaxed in the fact that the trust that I've got in these lads because of the last 6 months is probably the highest it can be. And the thing I've learned is once you get to Friday, after training Friday, and you've picked a team ready for the next day or whatever it is, that's all you can do. You can't control it anymore because you're not on the pitch. You can't make footballing decisions for the lads on the ball in them moments, but what you can do is give them the best opportunity in terms of the shape, the structure and the information over the however many days leading up to the game. And that's where my trust in these lads is probably the highest it's been in any scenario really, because ultimately, the football we play at this level, the bravery they play at, the bravery levels they maintain, regardless of setbacks, the last 2 out of 3 games we've gone 1-0 down, 2-1 down and still come back. And it's just learning myself to have that bit of calmness and knowing that the game's 90 odd minutes and having that belief in the lads that if anything goes wrong, whether it's a bad tactical decision or a mistake or whatever it might be, or a bad period, that the lads are good enough and are able to fix it.
Yeah, and of course, when everyone looks at the tie tomorrow, it always seems to be the league difference between the two sides that gets brought up. But when you mentioned last season's semi-final as well, of course you went into that as underdogs, really, given the size of the squad, as you mentioned there, and Barnet were 5th or 6th in the National League at that point in time. But does that give you some kind of insight into Macclesfield's possible mentality going into the weekend? Because obviously it's probably a bit of a rule switch in a sense for you now that everyone's looking at you as favourites for tomorrow.
Yeah, I think so. I think, obviously I don't know loads about the club, but obviously the stuff I do know in terms of their turnaround the last few years, similar to what we did as a club, and obviously they are a huge club. I think 4,500 for the FC United game, and they're playing really well, on a very good winning streak. Got really good individuals, and like I said before, in terms of league placings, I'd look at us and you would say we were favourites because of where we are in terms of step 1 to step 3. But in terms of club size, structure and budgets, it's probably, you could argue it's the other way around. And so we're under no illusions that not only the stimulus they're going to have going into this game, but the quality of their team, the difference the manager's made since he's come in, that it's going to be a really tough game. It's going to be a brilliant game as well. It's a cup semi-final at the end of the day, and it's going to be a brilliantly high emotive, high energy game, and we need to be able to deal with that and manage that, and we need to make sure we don't get caught up in it in terms of the making emotional decisions. We need to be calm, we need to be professional, we need to make sure we stick to what's got us to this point. But yeah, ultimately I'm just looking forward to what is a really good game, and against what I've enjoyed, what I would say are a very good team. I think it'll be our toughest test. Our toughest test in this competition, definitely. And I think that's going to be the challenge for the boys, is being able to deal with that. What would you say, the freedom that Macclesfield will have in the fact that they're on a fantastic run. They are coming as underdogs because of the situation in terms of the leagues we're in, but knowing that they're definitely not a step 3 team in my opinion, and that's a massive compliment to them as a club and their individuals, because they've got some very good players.
Yeah, and then finally for me, really, it's been mentioned already, the size of the squad compared to last season, but on the fitness front, how is everything kind of looking tomorrow? Obviously you've had Greg Ollie come back in recent weeks. You mentioned last week or the week before that Joe Grayson's sort of injury he's been struggling with wasn't as bad as you first thought as well, so it sounds like it's looking quite pleasing overall, really. Yeah,
we can't complain too much, to be honest with you. A couple of niggles, but nothing that would cause any issues, and obviously a couple of lads that are ineligible that have come in, but again, that's no different to what we've had previously. So no, it's a nice healthy squad, and yeah, lads have been tremendous in the way they've looked after themselves, their professionalism and getting through the game. So no, really pleasing on that front, and like I said, not just for tomorrow, but the running over the course of the next 2 weeks. We're going to need everyone as fit and as strong as possible, because I said to the boys today, there's no way that every single player doesn't play a game as a minimum between now and 2 weeks tomorrow to the end of the season, 6 games. So it's not ideal in the fact that players shouldn't be playing a game on a Thursday night and a Saturday afternoon, but no, that's the situation we find ourselves in. So we just need to make sure we're ready, and I think the big stress is that everyone understands how important that they will be in the running.